All right, welcome back to the last conversation that we are having today at What's Next in Music at the end of this eventful day at this conference. And we are going to be talking to this gentleman who is running behind me and has been just running through the hall, handing out pieces of paper which presumably contain questions that people are supposed to ask you. Are you that showbiz?
Well, I don't really want to say, but maybe.
Okay, good. Right, for those of you who don't know him, Elliott Lefko, is it all right if I introduce you as a veteran promoter? Do you like the word veteran? Because you've been doing it for many years, man. And is it all right if I introduce you as a concert industry big shot? Are you fine with that description?
I think I'm from Canada, so I'm very humble. So I don't know if I would say that, but I've definitely been doing it for a very long time.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Before we get on with this music-related business, may I just ask you, are you interested in basketball at all? Because everybody in Lithuania is interested in basketball.
Yeah, in fact, there's a connection in my life with Lithuania, with Zilnys.
Jonas, like the Jonas, the tall Jonas, Jonas Valančiūnas.
Yes, because he played for the Toronto Raptors, and so being a big basketball fan, my son and I, we loved Jonas, and he was a great player until he got traded, I think. So
yeah,
wonderful. And then Lithuania did very well in the tournament just recently too.
Are you aware that Canada is doing really well
Canada's
at the tournament?
Doing good because it's the first time that Canada has the basketball players playing for Canada who are in the NBA, and so they didn't want to play for Canada before for various reasons, but now they're all playing, and there's one guy, he's like a superstar, and they just beat Luka and his team, so that was kind of cool.
Fingers crossed for you beating the USA, because USA team. Well, we won against the USA several days ago in the basketball show, so I'm sure Canada can do it as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how they have like these dream teams from the USA, and then they go to play against the European teams, and they're shocked. In fact, there's a famous story when Canada played Russia I guess in the 70s, and Canada had no idea about Russia, and they just thought like, oh, it would be really easy, and as it turned out, it was really hard. The Soviets were amazing the way they played. It was just like tic-tac-toe with the puck, and they had a whole new style, and Canada was shocked. So what happened was that when it became really interesting, the whole country stopped doing what they were doing, and they would have like TVs in schools, and people would stop working just to watch it. It was a really famous series.
Okay, well, enough of this basketball small talk. Elliot, the next question is going to sound silly, but usually in the beginning of these conversations, we just ask, Elliot, what do you do? I know there's not a short way to answer that, but like, in a nutshell,
So I'm a concert promoter, so what I do is identify talent, and then once I see somebody that I want to work with, then I ask them if they want to do some concerts, and then I book their concerts, and hopefully the acts where they start small, they get larger, and then I can be successful with them.
That's a very modest way of describing it. Like, what's your official role? I mean, like, what does it say on your business card these days?
I mean, it's really, I started doing small shows in little tiny terrible clubs and promoting death metal and promoting punk rock, and then as I got older, I got more respectable and started trying to do shows more for the money rather than just for the enjoyment of music. But I think at some point I try to do both. I really have a passion for music, and I mean all kinds of music, and I'm always trying to chase the next thing. Really, is what I'm really interested in.
Okay, and I read one of your interviews. It is correct that you once tried to book, in fact, you booked Nirvana for $100 and they didn't even show up. Is that a true story?
The first time, yeah, because I was booking a lot of Seattle bands, and it was a show with like a lot of different groups, and that was pre-Bleach, and so definitely like Lemonheads, Nirvana, Mudhoney, all those kind of bands from the Seattle sound, and that was one band, and yeah, they got lost along the way and send their regrets.
And you were the first one to book Red Hot Chili Peppers to Canada. Is that also?
Yeah. So I was really interested in, at the time, the Chili Peppers were amazing, and when they first started. And I loved their music. It was really heavy funk, and I got to book them in a club. I mean, I don't remember if they were wearing the socks at the time, but it was definitely. I mean, like now they're just sort of this mainstream kind of band, but when they first started, they were an incredible band.
I just love the fact that Lithuania adores Red Hot Chili Peppers because the lead singer has some Lithuanian connections because he has Lithuanian blood, and I just adore the way that you go, okay, they used to be a great band. Nowadays, not so much. But anyway, like, so with all the big work that you have done at AEG Live, and, your story is really, really amazing, and you are going to tell it in pictures as well, as far as I know, because I'm just going to leave the floor to you, in a couple of seconds. My honest question is, you could be at 100, amazing backstage parties tonight, because you know so many artists and you've done so much work with many of them. Why the hell are you in Vilnius today?
I want to thank Maria and Vilma for inviting me, and my friend over here was in Primavera, and we had a wonderful time there, and then I got introduced to the wonderful people from this festival here, and they invited me, and I was so naive about Lithuania, and then now I'm here, and I'm walking around, and I'm enjoying it, I'm learning about the city, and about the cultural exchange from the different programs here, and it's wonderful to be here.
Absolutely. It's wonderful having you here, and I'm just going to bugger off to that seat over there, because I know you have some pictures and you have some stories to tell, and afterwards we'll have a short question and answer session. Okay, so, Elliot, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Well, I put together some pictures here, and then I could tell the story, and hopefully it'll be entertaining. So the first picture here, going back, so let's see here.
Yeah, you should probably, either the batteries have gone flat, or you should be doing it like this. Yeah, you should be like kind of pointing to that side.
Okay,
some
great.
Sort of like, yeah. So
okay.
Back, forth. This is nice.
Yeah, this one. So, so we had the one that, okay.
No, this way. This is forward. This way?
I see.
Yeah,
okay,
forward
great.
this way. Yeah.
So this is Chagall, and so being here, my grandparents were born in Poland, and they had to flee, and so this picture from Chagall is like his imagination of what the village in Poland was like, and obviously it's his dream of what the happiness was as a child, that he remembered it, and it was nothing like that, but in his imagination, it was a great place to be, but it wasn't a great place to be, and that's where, unfortunately, my grandparents had to flee from there and move to Canada, and that's where my story begins here. So this is Miles Davis, and when I was a kid, I really loved jazz music. It was my favorite, and I went to go see Miles play one time, and the story with Miles is that when he talked really in a hoarse, really difficult voice. It was very hard to understand him. And one time this guy said, he was asking Miles some questions, and he kept saying, Miles, what are you saying? What are you saying? And then he said, I'm sorry, I had to keep asking you questions for me to understand what you were saying. And he said, like, it's okay, because if you didn't ask me these questions, I knew that you weren't really listening to me. And Miles was amazing. He played with his back to the audience, and Miles wanted to be a rock and roller, so he made the record Bitches Brew, where he played electronic music, and it wasn't just the pretty music that he had played in the past, like Kind of Blue. He was a great performer. And this is Dexter Gordon, another great musician, who, there was a great film by Tavernier, the French director, and about a jazz musician in Paris, and that starred Dexter Gordon, one of the great jazz saxophone players, who I got to see too when I was a kid. So this is Rollins, Henry Rollins from Black Flag, and probably one of the first gigs that I did. And Rollins was an amazing musician, and as you can see, like no body fat on this man. And he was a crazy, crazy guy on stage, and Black Flag really started a punk rock. And as you see now, you see like all these Black Flag shirts that are all commercialized with different things on, but this is where it all started. And Rollins was from Washington, and he sang, he met Black Flag, and he was such a fan, and then he sang one song with them, and afterwards they just said, can you just stay with us and play? And when I would do gigs with him, he had nowhere to stay, so he'd come to my apartment, and he would sleep on the floor. And then later on, I had a little money, so I got like a fold-down couch, and said, Henry, do you want to sleep on the fold-down couch? And he said, it's cool, the floor's fine. And he would just sleep on the floor. This is Lydia Lunch, one of the great rock and roll poets. And she would do gigs, she would do spoken word gigs, and it'd be like this like a Raymond Chandler type of story, but murders, and she would tell these stories on stage, and you would just hang on every word. And it's just like a wonderful rock and roll performer. And eventually she had a band called Eight-Eyed Spy. Does anybody have any questions about Kurt Cobain? Oh! Oh, okay. Thank you so much. It's interesting you would ask that. It's all about audience participation, right? Kurt Cobain was a very gentle guy. And I remember, like, once the record was coming out with Smells Like Teen Spirit, it was just hitting, and I booked a gig for him for like 800 people, and it was in kind of like this bad area of town, and the only good thing about it was there was a Jamaican restaurant there that was really, really good. And so I saw him before the show, and he was eating at the Jamaican restaurant, and he wear like that cardigan that was when he did the MTV Awards, and it was just like I think like a warm blanket around him, the cardigan, just something to keep him grounded. And I just remember him eating the Jamaican food and being really happy. And that was a good moment. And they were a great band. So this is Neil Young, and probably growing up in Canada, that was my favorite performer, and I would go see him all the time, and just loved Neil Young. I loved his music so much. I loved how independent he was. I liked how he just, nobody could tell Neil Young what to do. And if he didn't like what was happening, he would just leave. He would leave his bandmates, he'd leave the gig. He was a very independent soul. And later on, fortunately, I got to work with him a few times doing some gigs, and that was a big highlight for me, and I got to say hello to him. So this is Dylan, and again, like, I think that was like just my dream was just wearing out Bob Dylan records as a kid, and listening to him as a folk musician, as a rock musician. And later on, I got to do some shows with him, and he's just a wonderful performer. It's a great picture, too. Thank you for picking that one. He's so young, and he's cool looking. Does anybody have any Sonic Youth stories?
Yeah, we do. Would you like to tell us the story about the Sonic Youth?
Thank you so much. So Sonic Youth, again, like Sonic Youth, again with the shirts, right? Like with the Black Flag, everybody has taken the Sonic Youth shirt now and use it for commercial purposes, for different things, which is kind of cool because the youth invented a really great type of music. And they just were like freeform, influenced by freeform jazz, influenced by rock, by art. They were artists, they were filmmakers, and they were musicians. And when they finally, it's a great picture too. I love that picture, like no faces. So they finally got to do a gig in Canada, and they were already kind of noticed by now. And there were so many people who wanted to go that I was selling tickets, and I sold too many tickets as a promoter. And I remember walking to the floor beforehand, like I have this foot, that foot, I can put more people. And then, of course, too many people came. And then the police came, and they saw the lineup, and they stopped people from coming in, and we had a riot. It's like in the song, like Teenage Riot. And it was crazy, and the cops were there. And it was probably the best gig ever, though, just because there was so much danger going on. And later on, I would do other gigs with them, and it was never as good. And I remember, like, Thurston, he used to keep all his guitars, and he would just put it in a cardboard box. Like, he didn't care. Like, the more smashed up his guitar, the better. So Mr. Kanye West, I got to do a gig with him. When I was living in California, I used to do gigs in Hawaii. And so Kanye wanted to play in Hawaii. And this was when his mother was alive, and his mother was his manager at the time. So she would travel with Kanye, and it was Kanye with a string section. And the gig was in Honolulu. and it didn't even sell out. Like it was like 6,000 people. It only sold like 4,200. So it was just too early for Kanye at the time. And because his mother was there, he was like so nice and so cool, and everything was so cool. But the funny thing with him was, afterwards he said, I want to stay in Hawaii for a few days. Can you hook me up with a hotel and a nice place? And so I thought, like, he wants quiet. He wants to go to like the Big Island or Kauai or somewhere like that. So I got him a hotel there. And then somehow in the middle of the night, he goes to the front desk and starts like banging away at the people and saying like, it's too quiet. I want noise. So we got on the phone and like he sent it back to Oahu where it's all commercial and noisy, and then he was happy again. But I had a good experience with this man. So and it was early, and then I never saw him again. So Leonard Cohen, again, this person who picked these pictures did a really good job. It's a beautiful picture of Leonard. He's young there. And so I got to do a lot of gigs with Leonard Cohen, and I promoted all his gigs after his comeback until he died. So I probably did about 100 shows with him, and it was always a pleasure, although he definitely had a mean streak. And one time he asked me, we were in a store, and he saw Kinder toys. And Kinder toys are like chocolate with a toy inside. And he said, well, why would you give a kid chocolate with a toy inside in case they're going to swallow the toy? He couldn't understand that part. So, but he's a funny guy. Now, this is Erykah Badu. So one of my favorite performers. She's little, but she looks 10 feet tall because when she wears it on her head, and she's just the coolest person. And I was doing a gig once with her and Guru's Jazzmatazz with Guru. And so Guru, she did a song on one of Guru's records called Plenty. And so later on, I was doing shows with Erykah, like again, small, like with Nirvana, like little shows, and then she got bigger and bigger, doing shows with her and like Jill Scott for like 10,000 people. And then I said to Erykah, like, I love that song that you did with Guru, and the song was called Plenty. And then so she turned to me and she said, like, she got plenty. It was just like, it was so nice. She sang the song to me, but she was just a very cool person. So our friends here, Sigur Rós, one of the great bands, and so this is currently what I do. I promote tours with Sigur Rós and some other bands, and I just finished a tour with them in North America with this 40-piece symphony orchestra, and it was incredible. Like they're just a wonderful group of people. This is an early picture, so one of the musicians is not in the band anymore, but they're just wonderful to work with and so creative. This is Ruben Blades from Panama, I believe, and he's an actor, a musician, and so there's a saying like you shouldn't book with your heart, you should book with your head as a promoter. And what that means is like don't book the shows just because you like them. Try to, because it'll break your heart eventually. So I never heard of him, and then I saw a movie about him, and it was a story about Ruben Blades, and it was just like, wow, this guy's amazing, and he's going to be like president of his country one day, and I think he ran for office, and his music was so good, and I did a concert, and nobody came, and then after the show, I had no money to pay him, and I had to go around to a bunch of my friends and borrow money from everybody to pay him. But but again, like that's where you get the good stories from the bad times. So this is Mr. John Waters, like again one of the great American directors and of Cry Baby and all the films that he did with like Pink Flamingos, and so I did some shows with him where he would do spoken word to the audience, and he was a really, really funny guy. And I mean, he invented that whole style, like with his mustache and with just the whole kitsch idea. And then so many people use his ideas afterwards. But at the time, I wanted to start a record company, and it only lasted for a few. I put on like some psychobilly kind of records, and there was a record store in France called New Rose Records, and I licensed some records from that guy. But I needed a name for the record company, and I called John Waters and said, like, can you give me a name? And he left a message on my answering machine when people had answering machines, and it was called Right Side Records instead of the left side of the brain, the right side. And I got this guy to do this logo, and it was like it was a man with fedora and an overcoat, and he was like that, he was putting like a bullet in his head. It was a beautiful logo. Please do. Who's that?
Just skip it.
Okay, so this is William Burroughs, the writer of the famous book Naked Lunch. And I did, for his 70th birthday, I got to do a gig with Burroughs. And it was amazing. Like, he just, he sat like this. And you had to get him a desk. And then he sat at the desk. And he would read, like, "Thou shalt not blow smoke into thy cat's eye." You know, it's just so funny. And he was just like, I mean, he shot his wife in the head. He killed his wife doing William Tell. And he was just like, but I mean, he was just a crazy, crazy guy. But again, he invented the method, the cut-up method, where he would write and cut it all up and put it back together again. So, like a surrealist, he was an American just inventor of so many bands took so much from him. Like the name Steely Dan, it was from one of his books, and many other people stole from Burroughs. So this is Biz Markie, the rapper, and I would work with the Beastie Boys a lot, and one time they said, "Can you get Biz Markie to open a show?" And I got him in Montreal, and he came, and he needed somebody to help him. So I remember I took him to a smoked meat place in Montreal, corned beef, and he ordered mayonnaise with his smoked meat, and they threw him out of the restaurant. And he collected Beanie Babies, so he was very childlike, but he made like some great music. So again, if you we're at the end of the presentation here, but I think the thing is, if you ask me like what I would like to do in the future, if I had the opportunity, if I can wave a magic wand, one of them would be to work with Ringo Starr. So he put out this record in his career, and he went down to Nashville and he made a country record, and it's this beautiful, beautiful record with like steel guitar and all the people who play like a Nashville Skyline on the Dylan record, and people just hated the record, and they just said, like, "You don't know what you're doing," but it's an amazing record. So my dream would be like, "Hey, Ringo, let's do this record, and let's show everybody that you really did know what you're talking about, that you are a great singer, and that you appreciated American country music, and that we should do this record and get..." The people who played on the record are all long gone probably now, but get like contemporary musicians who can play steel guitar and that type of music and back them up. And I don't know, maybe I'll get the opportunity, although Ringo Starr is probably 80 years old now. But I don't know, I love his music too. And so this is Paul Westerberg from the group The Replacements, and that's like my favorite group. And he retired. He had the band back together again a few years ago. They played Coachella and they did a tour. And he's just very anti-fame, anti-popularity. It was just when he was young, he did it all. He did it so hard, and now he just wants to retire and not do anything. But I'd love to do something with him, and I have a really good idea. There's a TV show called Better Called Saul, and really good show. So the actor in that show is a big fan of Paul, and what I want to try to do is see if I could get that actor and Paul together, and maybe they could collaborate and do something, even if it's in a tiny little place, but to try to do something. So I think that's the end of the show here. Oh, okay, we got a couple others. So this is the Bad Seeds, and along with Sigur Rós, that's what I do these days. I promote shows with the Bad Seeds, and I've been working with them for about 10 years now. And I have a show coming up with, a tour coming up with in October with Nick. And he's performing with the bass player from Radiohead. So it's just the two of them, and it's a tour of like 20 cities across North America. It starts in October, and Nick's really good to work with. He's just like he's always coming up with ideas, always coming up with different ideas. Like he did a tour where he took questions from the audience. And he didn't give them the questions, but they asked really amazing questions. Questions for like some people would say like, can you sign my arm and I can get a tattoo? And other people were like, I lost a family member and I'm really sad and I don't know what to do. I know you lost your son. Can you? Is there anything you can comfort me with? Any thoughts? And he was just so nice to the audience. And so we did that tour, and then he did like shows with Warren Ellis that were beautiful. And then the Bad Seeds are going to come back in the next couple of years and start doing some shows. So this is an early version of the Bad Seeds. Like there's like Kid Congo Powers over there who's no longer in the group. Some of those guys are, I think only like maybe one of them are left from those guys. Maybe none of them are left. And he doesn't look like that. And his hair, he dyes his hair like crazy. But he's a pretty cool guy. Okay, so there's Kraftwerk, again, another group that I work with. So I've been working with them for about 10 years also. And the second guy, Ralph, he's the only one left in the group now. He's 74, and they're robots. They're like robots. And then at the end of the show, they bring on robots. They're from Dusseldorf, and they invented the computer music. And I went to them one time and said, like, you're only doing a couple shows. You should do like so many other shows. And the guy said, yeah, like let's do it. And then I booked them into Nashville and all these great places. And he just loved it. And he loved getting in the car. And then afterwards he'd say, like, take me to a place where we can go hear some dance music. And they would just sit there. And yeah, it's a good show. It's a really good show. But who knows if they're even playing on stage anymore, because you can't tell. They're just playing behind these desks. And they're going to come back and play again in a couple years. Okay, so I think this is MGMT. And so this is a group that I work with, and they're a great, great band. But the problem with them is that they don't like to leave their houses. And it's really hard to get them to do a tour if they don't want to leave their house. But they're, I mean, Andrew's like, he's such a star, and then Ben is like a really great musician. And they started music in their dormitory room in a university in Eastern United States. And the first record was just such a big record. There's been nothing like that in history, where they had like 3 songs off the first record that were such huge hits. They had success so early, and you were talking about like fame and accepting fame, and they didn't want to accept fame. They never could justify all the fame that they got. They just didn't feel like they deserved it, and they felt everybody else deserved it. So they had like that kind of maybe imposter syndrome about them, and they're trying to understand like just how to deal with that. And all these years later, still trying to deal with it. So trying to get them to play concerts in the future, but no luck right now. But sometimes you just have a lot of patience, and like one day you got a call. But they're another great band. And there you go.
Okay. Sorry? Karen Finley,
What's that?
Karen Finley, the lady that you didn't recognize in the slideshow.
Who was it?
Who is that? Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, you can't you don't remember. You worked with her. I mean, like, yeah. Was she on the list?
Oh, I know. I think I know who that was. Okay, so that was Karen Finley. Yeah, and so Karen Finley is kind of forgotten right now, but she was an amazing performance artist. And so I worked with a lot of performance artists when I was first starting out. And one of her things was that she would get tarred and feathered on stage. So she'd go on stage, and then she would cover herself with eggs and then Feathers, and as a performance piece. And then I'd have to like walk her off the stage when she was in the state. But an incredible performer.
Okay, let me start with this. Who is or was the artist that you would love to have on this slideshow, but for some reason have never worked with? I mean, like, is there any artist that would be on top of that list?
I think a lot of us grew up with David Bowie, so I think probably I never had a chance to work with David Bowie, but I remember like the first time I ever like smoked hash was like listening to David Bowie, and got high off the hash and got high off of David Bowie at the same time, and everybody wishes like they could have been David Bowie growing up, and in whatever role he was, whether it was like Ziggy Stardust or the Thin White Duke or whatever. And then, but I remember like I lived in Toronto, and as a kid, and driving to with my friends to Detroit to go see Bowie, and it was like 7 hours away, and just like, I'm gonna see David Bowie. It's like so good. And yeah, I think like whatever record he made was a good record, whether it was Ziggy or whether it was Low or whether it was like Young Americans or later on. And I mean, he loved Kraftwerk, and he got a lot of influence by Kraftwerk. But I think Bowie was just. And then at the end, like people told me stories about when he lived in New York, and he'd walk around and he'd go to eat or go to a studio, and he was obviously he was getting sick at that point, but. Like, oh wow, there's David Bowie, and I think he's a very classy guy.
Another thing, I saw a picture on a friend's Instagram because you were walking around Vilnius yesterday, and I saw that you saw the monument for Leonard Cohen, and you did some work with Leonard Cohen. Does the statue look anything like him?
Well, we looked.
Just be honest.
Like, he's not that tall because he was short, but he always dressed impeccably. And the suit that they have him wearing is like that. Like he always like very slim suit. And his father was a tailor, so he always wore a suit and a tie. There's a famous picture of him like in LA carrying a bag of Cheetos, a bunch of Cheetos, Cheeto snacks from 7-Eleven. And he, when I first started working with him, he said to me like, I have this idea of what I want. I want like, everybody in my band wearing suits and hats. Can you help me? And so, no problem. And can you help me get a tour manager? And I got this guy, a punk rock guy with like green hair, and he really loved that because he didn't want like some old dude to be his tour manager. And then he was really funny, and he was really nice. But there were times when you're in my business, you can't be a fan anymore. You can't be like, oh, wow, and when I was a kid, I loved you. They don't want to hear any of that. Like, they want to, like show me the money. Show me, like, where I'm supposed to go, and just be, like, a business person with me. And so there were times when he'd get really angry with me. And there was one time when I was in L.A. and I was sleeping, and then I get a text or an email in the middle of the night, and it was like, WTF. It was like, and I, like, turned to my wife and said, like, I thought he was a Buddhist, you know, like, but he had this really black streak about him that he could get really angry, and there was like 2 or 3 times. And one time he just like really got mad at me, and then I was really sad, and I walked away, and this was like at the end of the tour at party. I walked away, and it was really sad, and then I came back, and then he found me, and he just said, I'm really sorry, man, I was upset. I had to get out of my system, but I'm good now. And I said, oh, I love you, Leonard. Don't worry about it. Everything's good. And it was fine. But he definitely had the yin and the yang about him.
Ever considered writing a memoir?
Pardon me?
Are you writing a book? Because even those stories which are told in 20 minutes sound like.
What I really want to do is I want to make a film about this American diamond, and he's really famous. He was the one who introduced the band to Dylan, and his father was the famous John Hammond, who signed like Bessie Smith and Dylan, and I've contacted him about trying to do a film, and I think now it's like music. Like, film is in the hands of the people now. Anybody, you can make a film on your phone if you'd like. You don't have to have a cinematographer. You don't have to have like a sound engineer. You can just get like somebody to set up the camera like that and put a mic on you, and you could go and make a film. So, I mean, I told him that. I said, I'm not a filmmaker, but is anybody going to make a film about you? And he said, no. And I said, well, I want to do it. Like, let's make it happen. So I don't know. I'd rather like not talk about myself, but I would rather do something with somebody like that.
Yeah, we noticed that you'd rather not talk about yourself because,
Yeah.
you know, you spent like 20 minutes describing stories about all those amazing people, but you barely told anything about yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to let you off the hook. I want to ask you, like, how did you actually end up doing this? Well, I read that you started by writing about music. Is that correct?
Yeah, I started off, I was a journalist, and when I first started, and I wrote articles about like the Dead Kennedys and Duran Duran and all these bands, and it just, I mean, they paid you like $100, and it wasn't enough money. And then I realized if I did a concert, I could make like $500, and all I do is make a phone call. So it was like, stay up all night, write an article, or make a phone call. And it was just like, so I love journalism and I like writing, and it was so much fun, and you got a real rush out of writing. But it was just, I also like doing this too. So I feel like I knew what I wanted to do. When I was like in 12 years old, I was bringing people to my school. I'd go to like a club and I'd see somebody, and then I'd say like, oh, I'm in grade 7. Can you come to my school and do a concert? And they would do it. And so it was one of these things where you knew in your heart what I wanted to do, like so early, it wasn't a problem. And then and to this day, I'm doing that. I think, you know, like my son is 21, and he has no idea what he wants to do, and who knows if he'll ever know what he wants to do. But I mean, he just wants me to pay for everything. But it's different now. I mean, it's different because like kids can't go out and they can't get a house, and we talked about that, and they can't get a job, and it's really kind of difficult. I mean, nobody gave me anything. Like my parents didn't have money to give me, and they certainly didn't know how to do anything, but I just did it myself. So I don't know. I think like the story is like whatever you want, you can get, even if you want it, depending on how you do it, whether you get a grant and you take like a long time to get the grant, or you just hustle. But I mean, I think that you can take a bite of the apple. I think it's there if you want it.
Well, you know, what's interesting, I read several interviews with you, and, you know, and there are all those stories about booking this or that band for the first time to Canada when nobody else believed in that band, and when, you know, 3 weeks later everybody's chasing them. Is there such a thing as loyalty and real friendships in music these days? What do you think? Because sometimes we get this impression there, you know, whoever gives the best offer, you know, you go with that, and, you know, the next tour, they go with another promoter, another, you know, another venue, another what have you. So is there still such a thing as loyalty? And do you think these days, like 80s, when
Right.
basically that's when you started, you know, were a bit different?
Well, there's like that company Live Nation that have offices around the world, and then so they just kind of like they're like Pac-Man, like they eat everything, and then but I feel like I have loyalty, and like with Sigur Rós, like I've been working with for 10 years, and then the first time I did a tour with them, and the guy was like the manager was like this really serious guy, and then when it was over, he was sitting at the hotel, and then I go like, "Am I okay?" And he goes, "You're fine." Like, and then ever since then, like working with them like all the time, and Jonsi is cool with me, and he says like, "You should promote our shows in Europe," and like I go, I don't know, like I want to, but and then same thing with like with Nick Cave or Kraftwerk or some of these other bands, they're loyal to me. What I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to chase new ideas. The performer Ethel Cain, she just played in Portugal, and she was amazing. She sang a song with Florence Welch, and it was incredible. Like, if you see the YouTube clip of Ethel Cain and Florence, like Ethel Cain is going to be a big star, and she is embracing the LGBT community and in a big way, and it's really important what she's doing. It's somebody I'd like to work with. I'd like to work with Beach House. So I'm trying to get like new acts that I'm trying to work with, and it's this romance. You're trying to please work with me, try to do something, and then hopefully you offer something to people that they want to work with you. I don't work with the mainstream, and the mainstream is just definitely like, how much money can I make? And so all the pop acts and all that kind of stuff, I don't work with any of those people, and they don't want to work with me either. And they'll again, that is just about like who will offer the most amount of money. So I'm hoping I can work with the people where I can bring some value.
There are those amazing stories, you know, I presume in the early days where you paid the roadies or the, you know, technicians, and then 20 minutes later had to go to them and borrow that money back because you had nothing to eat the next day. I mean, like good old days, you know, beginning of a promoter's career. What was the lousiest booking? Is there anything that you still regret, like business-wise? I could ask about the biggest success of your career, but it's always, you know, more interesting to hear the stories where...
It's true that I would pay people and ask for $20 back so I can go either to buy drugs or food. It's true. But yeah, I mean, I used to make food for the bands too. I would like cook lasagna and salad, and then, because they didn't want to give them the buy-on of $20 each, I thought it'd be cheaper if I did that. It really cost me like $14. And so I would bring them the food from my kitchen in my little place, and then some people would go, wow, this is great. Other people go like, are you kidding? Like, you know, like, where's my $20, right? So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I think that there's definitely been some rough times where I remember, like, I brought in this guy, Rufus Thomas. He did this famous song called this famous dance. He was like this famous rock and roll performer, and he would come on wearing hot pants. It was like. And his daughter, Carla Thomas, was this really famous singer with Stax. And so I brought the two of them in. And no, again, same thing, nobody showed up. And same thing, like Rufus Thomas, where's my money? Like, and all right, just give me a minute, let me figure this out here. And then, so I went to the club owner and said, like, I can't pay the band, what do I do? And the club owner was so cool because I had done so many good gigs. And he just said, like, what do you need? Like, no problem, here's your money. And then I go, thank you so much. And like a week later, I brought in some band that did New Orleans music, where the guy would wear like a piece of metal, and he'd just do like this thing with metal. That was like the music, and like with accordions. And nobody knew who this group was, but it was packed, just because like it's just the way life is. And I made all my money back, pay the guy back. So I think it's just like you always like hope that you could live another day.
Well, you mentioned one interesting thing, you know, and that is very true, that once you are in a certain league, you can't be a fan of the artist because, you know, it's business first and foremost. But like any of the acts that you worked with throughout the years that you would call friends?
I mean, there used to be this famous New York poet, rocker. His name was Jim Carroll, and he had this famous song called The People Who Died. And he wrote this book called The Basketball Diaries, a really amazing book. It was a film starring Leonardo DiCaprio when he was like 15 years old, and it's great film, great book, and he was a cool guy. He was when he was young though, he was a bad heroin addict, and when people like Burroughs or Jim Carroll would come to Toronto, I'd have to take them to the Addiction Research Center so they could get their cup of what's this stuff called? When you're an addict and you have to maintain afterwards. So they have to drink this thing, so I'd take them to go get that. And but Jim Carroll was a very cool guy, and I liked. It was fun talking to him.
Is it true that that was actually the first show that you promoted, or maybe that's just an urban legend?
I remember, like in my mother's kitchen. Got to use the phone, and I used to do all my calls after 6 o'clock because it was cheaper at the time. So I would just sit in my apartment, and I would like watch TV and watch like all these soap operas as the world turns or whatever, and then from 4 to 6 watch soap operas, and at 6:01 and make my calls because it was cheap.
There's all this talk, especially in the post-COVID world, that there's only space for all those megastars who are going to be even bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and, you know, the smaller artists playing club circuit are really struggling. What's your take on that, and do you think the future is bleak, or should we be optimists?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, there's always going to be like huge stars like Beyonce and Ed Sheeran, like all these guys, right? Selling out stadiums. But there's so much good music out there. And again, whether it's like little tiny promoters doing little tiny shows, everything is valid and it doesn't really matter, to all these, so much good music out there. And then, I mean, guys like Nick Cave, he's singing all this new music. He's not even like singing the old stuff anymore. And he's just, it's so creative. And there's so many people like that out there now that are making really creative music. And I know, depending on what genre, whether it's rap music or metal or whatever, I think there's still so much creative music out there now. And the people that I work with, I just see everybody has like a lot of good ideas. And my notes that I make to myself as far as trying to find people, I can find lots of stuff. It's just whether, I mean, the people I work for are, there was this band called the Minutemen and Firehose, and so he called commercial music mersh. Instead of commercial, he said mersh. So it's like, people are interested in mersh, and like, you shouldn't just be interested in mersh. You should be interested in like other stuff too. And I think hopefully I can represent the other stuff and not just mersh.
Well, how do you feel seeing all those young kids, like 13-year-olds, walking around in their H&M Nirvana shirts, not having a clue what that band was all about?
No, I mean, it's. I think people. It's a beautiful thing that people still love Nirvana, and they're a great band. And I think that he hated the commercial side of things. He liked the time he was on stage. He didn't like anything else, and he had depression. And I think he'd enjoy the fact that his name is still out there.
Yeah, well, I talked to my 13-year-old son, and all his friends have Nirvana shirts, and I said, like, do you know the music? He said, no, I don't. But do your friends know that music? No, but the logo looks cool. So
Yeah,
I was more talking along these lines.
You never know. I mean, like, my son, I used to take him to all these gigs when he was a kid. I mean, when he was in the womb, we took him to see Bjork, and then later on, I took him to go see all these good gigs. And then when he was at Coachella, like, he would just play with his toys every year. He didn't know what was going on when he was a kid. And then one day, he saw like Daft Punk or something, and it was just like, boing. And so sometimes it takes a while. Like maybe your kid will, one day, Dad, like Nirvana's amazing.
No, well, he likes Red Hot Chili Peppers,
Yeah.
which you don't.
Yeah.
Well, you used to like Red Hot Chili Peppers, but now they are not even in your presentation. Big mistake when you come to Lithuania. No, I'm just kidding. What advice would you give to young people who are, listening to this conversation and who would like to do what you are doing? What's the entry point, or in general, what advice would you give them? Like, maybe the advice is like, don't, because
No,
it's.
of course not. I mean, whatever it is you want to do, whether I think it's just you should just do it. And I can't give you like a guidebook, because there's no guidebook. It doesn't exist. It's all in your head, really. And I mean, it's like artists like Basque and all these people, when they were alive, like they just did it. And I mean, he was just in his loft, like doing his crazy thing, and then he became famous later on. But I think you just have to do it. And when I used to go down to New York from Toronto, and they'd have like this airline, and it's like $60 you pay on the plane, and I'd go down there, and I would just like, where can I find it? Like, where are these people? I looked on the back of record jackets, and like, where do I find this guy? And I'd say, how do I get Sonic Youth? What do I do? And then I just like go to some place in the Lower East Side and find the guy, and I want to do Sonic Youth. And sometimes you win, and sometimes you lose.
Well, Sonic Youth played in Lithuania in 1988. Nobody had any clue who they were, but they were one of the first Western bands to come over to this part of the world. So everybody came just to see what it's all about. And then there was a TV show saying, like, we don't need this kind of rock music in Lithuania. So that's the Sonic Youth story for you. I mean,
Yeah.
you asked if anybody has a Sonic Youth story. I'm sure you have more Sonic Youth stories.
No, but I think that hopefully their music was universal. I mean, it was just noise. So it wasn't like they're singing a song. So noise is noise.
Yeah. Is there any kind of music that you totally, because you sound like you are a music fan, you obviously are. Is there any kind of music that you totally hate, you absolutely have no time for?
Probably. I mean, I like early early country music, like Hank Williams and that kind of stuff, and Porter Wagner, and that kind of music is. And it's funny because like the record label Anti, who put on like
Tom Waits
Tom
and
Waits and all that kind of stuff, and then they put out like Porter Wagner records later on too. So they were like really cool. And yeah, I mean, hopefully one day Tom Waits will call. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, just when I asked you about advice, I think one of the advice, an important advice could be like, be prepared to walk silly hours. Because you mentioned that thing, you're at night and Leonard Cohen starts texting saying WTF, etc. This is not the job for someone who wants like, their holidays, who wants their like 1 month off, their like 9 to 5 job. Definitely not.
No. Definitely not. Although like the business kind of stops in December. So I think usually I would always go to places around Christmas. So I think that traditionally over the years, I got to go to a lot of countries in Europe during that time period. And that was always a good time period. But it's definitely, yeah, I mean, I have this concert I'm doing right now. Do you know the artist Mitski?
Yeah.
So yeah, she's amazing. So I'm doing a show with Mitski. And it got fucked up with Ticketmaster. Like they put the tickets on sale and it wasn't supposed to. So this morning the manager's like texting me like, "Can you fix this?" And I don't know. I'm in like Vilnius right now and trying to talk to some people here and like I don't know. But yeah, so it's never like it doesn't really stop.
How do you deal with friends who are constantly asking you for free tickets and backstage passes and meet and greets, and like, do you have a protocol for that?
Well, I mean, backstage isn't like it used to be. We talked about how it's all about like vegan. It's all vegan now. Like, I mean, some of these people would roll over in their grave, right? Like, so it's all. There's no reason to go backstage anymore. I mean, like, unless you want to like see like somebody get a massage, but it's just like it's way too healthy these days. And I think that, yeah, I don't know. It's all good. Everything's really good. Yeah.
Did you ever consider quitting? I mean, was there a time where, because you've been doing it for like several decades already,
Yeah.
and however fascinating the job is, sometimes you can have some sort of breakdown.
There's definitely a lot of depression involved. I think like it contributes to depression. I know I have, everybody has dark thoughts and depression, and it weighs on you sometimes. And there's nothing. I mean, it's accumulation because of different factors going on. Everybody has that in their lives, and you all try to like. Overcome that and overcome other people's expectations, etc. But I think that what I find is like as bad as one day is, usually like the next day is better. And I think that's true. And it's like sometimes you just have to wait it out and problems do get solved. So what looks bad one day will take care of itself and be better the next day. And it's just the law of averages that things will happen that way.
Well, actually, the line of work that you're doing, doesn't it spoil a bit the whole experience of just looking at a concert through music fans' eyes? I mean, like you go to a festival, do you always go, okay, probably 40,000 tickets, they probably broke even, the overhead is, the ticket price is this, because, well, I get that, for example, with basketball referees. They say, we are never going to watch the game, the way people usually watch games anymore. I mean, like, you just go and you just dissect everything.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're going to go see groups tonight and tomorrow in the prison. The prison's amazing. Like, so
that's not where the festival is happening. I just need to warn you: you are not going to a prison. Please, nobody go to a prison. Let's all go to Loftus. That's another venue. But anyway,
we're not going to get the tour of the torture and all that.
No, you can get the tour, but there are no bands playing there.
Some horrible stories that went on here. No, I definitely suspend judgment. I remember like one time there was this band I saw in New York. They were called Captain America, and they're just like I was going, oh my God, this band is like so good. And they just like, there are a lot of moments like that where you go and then like at Primavera with like the 15 stages, and they had this one stage. It was in a theater, and it was incredible. I've just never seen anything like it. It was like the weirdest, craziest music in this one place. It was like John Cale, who I never thought I'd see, and then like Laurie Anderson, and they were all in the Swans. It was like so loud, and that place was amazing. So, and it was just so, when you're watching it, you're just going, oh my God, this is incredible, and there's nowhere else that you want to be, and then just discovering music, especially like sometimes you heard of somebody, then you actually get to see them, and then it's very rewarding.
Actually, I didn't ask you that before. Have you heard any Lithuanian bands at all?
No, I mean, I didn't even, again, you have to excuse me, but I didn't know where this country was, so, but that's what it's all about. I mean, you just like, you have to like open your heart to find about other cultures, and that's why I've been definitely trying to do that, and I hope that I could discover more. And I mean, look where music's coming from right now, like especially like in some countries in Africa right now, is it just seems like that's really where it's at right now. And some of these artists are like doing incredible business, and I think that I just read about how they're going to sign like some more groups from there. So that's like crazy. I don't know anything about that. So I'd love to discover more of that in the future.
Well, our conversation is coming to an end. I'm sure people in the crowd have questions, but let me ask you this one. It's a nasty one, and I'm not sure if you will answer this one, but what is the most overrated act in the world today, in your humble opinion?
We can, sorry, do you want to answer that? I don't know, there's so many of them. Yeah, there's so many of them. Like there's ones where their fans would like get mad at you if you said that and like come to your house and beat you up. So I know there's all kinds of stuff like that.
Okay, the most underrated though.
Underrated? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, like I have my favorites, but you have your favorites. Everybody has their favorites. So I just find that the people that I work with, I'm always have to say like, oh, can I do this? Can I do that? And I'm just saying, and it's just like they don't understand like there's so much good music out there, and it's just hard to like say you don't understand this person. You may not have heard of them now, or you don't think they're that big, but they're going to be bigger later on. I mean, not everything has to be Blackpink. It's like there's other stuff in this world besides that, and I think that's what I try to get behind.
So Blackpink, basically.
I mean, Blackpink's a great band, though, and we were watching at Coachella Frank Ocean, and they were watching it beside me, and they were like, they weren't wearing all their makeup and everything. They were just like watching the show, and they were really digging it, and they were. It was a crazy show, but they were enjoying it, and no, more power to them. I don't find anything. I mean, I saw them at Coachella when they first played, and they were really good, and people were freaking out, and I watched them watch Frank Ocean, and it was amazing, and he's a great artist too, and what he tried to do at Coachella was incredible, and it was just like, it was a train wreck, but it was like a good train wreck, and it was just trying to understand what he was trying to do, and I think he was just objecting to the fact that everybody has to put on a show these days, and it's gotten bigger and bigger, and I think he said, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to stop, and I don't want to do that. I want to just do my thing. And it was like the show was like watching him in his brain, like trying to create in the studio. That's what his show was like, and it was so difficult. He just couldn't do that again after that, though. It was just too difficult. He was, that was kind of fun to watch, and that was fun watching them.
Okay. Does anybody want to ask a question? I'm sure you do. Okay. Maybe I'll bring the microphone, or maybe you can just shout.
From your point of view, what are the biggest mistakes made by artists that try to pitch their stuff to a promoter and get booked, which ends up by being not booked?
You mean like booking themselves in a place that's too big, or what do you mean?
When you try to get booked, to get a gig or something like that, what are the mistakes that annoy promoters
Like, you mean that you're trying to get promoters' interest, you're trying to make promoter interested, so what are the mistakes that the bands are doing?
I mean, it was like they were saying in one of these panels earlier today, it's like you have to have your own story. And if you don't have your own story kind of ready to go, then it's just hard for people. There's not much you can do after that. You got to kind of build up your own story really first. And then if you have, then people will want to come to you. Like, it seems like not just having a lot of social media, but where you've played before, how you've done, that some kind of successful story that you need to build yourself first. I think that's the most important thing. And then the promoter will go, okay, I get it. I understand what you're trying to do. But if they just come and go like, can you help me? It's just like, I don't know what I can really do. I need to like build upon what you're building.
Yeah, I think we have a microphone here as well. So yeah, there's a gentleman here who wants to ask a question.
So you didn't really talk about the marketing side of the events, because as I can understand, because you make those events, you also have to spread the info about them. So how did it change from those 90s or sometimes to today's time?
Yeah, that is a good question. In the 90s, like, you would open up the Village Voice, and then it said, like, the Chili Peppers are playing at Irving Plaza. And okay, no problem. Or everybody was listening to the radio in the 90s. So you would listen to K-Rock, and the Bee Gees are playing tonight. And you go, okay, no problem. And I'll go to the concert. And then now there's nobody listening to radio, so you can't buy like a radio ad. There's no newspapers, so you can't take an ad in the newspapers. So what you have to do is just have people who know social media. And then in some ways, it's easier, because like when the artist says that they're playing and they already have followers, so the artist says like Mitski goes, I'm doing some gig, and everyone goes, great, no problem. I'm going to go to the show just because she announces it, and you don't even have to spend any money. And then other times, but you need also people who know social media, who can, there's like people who can like plant the seed, so that, you know, sometimes when you're looking for a pair of jeans, and then the next day it was like you're getting all the stuff about jeans coming up at you. Like, who does that? But you need to have somebody do that for you, and so that they'll tell you about your shows that you're doing. So we have people who work at my company who can do that sort of thing. And so that, I think that's what's happening now, is just like how finding people who can do that for you and get that out there. And then of course, like just trying to create the fan base and go off of that.
Anyone else?
Well, thank you so much for having me here, and I really appreciate you inviting me and giving me the opportunity to do this, and it was a blast.
Thank you so much, Elliot.